This is the Podcast Express, and we're talking to whoever's listening out there. Welcome to 5 Minutes of Trouble, the only podcast on the internet that discusses the John Carpenter film Big Trouble in Little China 5 minutes at a time. I'm Josh Horowitz from the Wing Kong Exchange, and my co-host is here, Brett Stillo.
And the check is in the mail.
Indeed.
I like saying that. Yeah, the check is in the mail.
And we have a special guest on the Podcast Express, Pete Mummert from the Indiana Jones Minute. Welcome, Pete.
Hi, thanks. It's good to be here.
Awesome. I'm excited. This is our first guest.
All right.
That's our very first guest. We're making progress here.
Oh, yeah. Pete, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
I feel like I just stepped off a plane. This is cool. I'm from the Indiana Jones Minute, which is a similar format, I think, to this podcast. And I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys today.
Yeah, no, this is great.
I'll just add the Indiana Jones Minute is a fantastic podcast. You're kind of our mentors a little bit, our sponsors here, helping get us started. If not for you, Pete, Josh and I would not know of each other's existence. So
that's absolutely right. Yeah, it was awesome. I was able to contact Pete actually regarding the Raiders guys. They were in town for their adaptation movie, and I contacted Pete over at Indiana Jones Minute and mentioned them, and then Pete was kind enough to talk about Brett and got us in touch, and that's how this podcast got started. So thank you, Pete. You're cool. You're part of the reason that we're here.
I'm kind of like the Lords of Death. I'm bringing people together.
Yeah, it's kind of. I think we're finding that out about these Movie Minute podcasts. It's a really cool network, and it hasn't gotten to the point where we're stepping on each other for ratings, which is nice.
Yeah.
And just a shout out to your co-hosts Tom and Jerry.
Oh, thank you.
The three of you guys do a great job over there.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited about this too. I'm really excited about Big Trouble in Little China.
They're interesting movies to compare and contrast. There are some similarities, and then they're totally unalike.
Yeah, and I've seen several instances online of people comparing Jack Burton with Indiana Jones, like comparing and contrasting. Maybe is a better way to describe it.
What do they usually say about that?
I've seen a lot of Jack Burton as sort of an everyman version of Indiana Jones, where he's kind of making things up as he goes along, kind of like Indy, but he's a little more ineffectual.
Yeah. I think that might be Jack's problem as he saw Raiders. Really, and I think Josh and I have talked about this, but both of these characters have that similar swagger. They have mastered the art of talking out of the side of their mouths.
Uh-huh.
Both actors have certain physical similarities. In fact, Pete, do you know did Kurt Russell try out for Raiders?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if he was one of the guys or not. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, I believe he tried out for Han Solo, but
really,
yeah, I'm pretty sure. There's that kind of famous primitive black and white VHS, or not even VHS, but it's a videotape. Christopher Walken as Han Solo. I think Kurt Russell tried out for Han Solo. You would think he would try out for Indiana Jones. Maybe he was busy being Snake Plissken. Again, similar characters, but yeah, I think the problem is Jack thinks he's Indiana Jones.
Right.
And we're going to see some of that coming up here.
Yeah.
Well, let's actually get to the minutes in question.
Yes.
We are at minutes 10 through 15. Minute 10 starts with Jack and Wang awaiting Miao Yin's arrival at the airport, and they end with the Pork Chop Express narrowly missing Egg's yellow tour bus. And there's a lot that happens. We thought we saw action in the last minutes with all the gambling and the bottle bet, but we're actually getting some really good story, good fight scenes in these 5 minutes.
This is where it picks up. This is where it's not going to be another Year of the Dragon. It's things are changing. This is not your average action adventure movie.
I have yet to see Year of the Dragon, so I can't really compare that. I mean, that actually comes up quite a bit because I guess Dennis Dunn was in that.
Yeah, Dennis Dunn, and it's prior to Big Trouble. That was a Hollywood production, but a largely Asian American cast, and Michael Cimino, much darker, the seamy underside of Chinatown, what you don't know. And, very neo-noir. But, again, the central character, I believe that was Mickey Rourke, Hey, another fair-haired, scruffy-looking guy who talks out of the side of his mouth. But, very different movies. And, I mentioned this, I think, in the last episode. It kind of starts off, especially, in the last minute when you see Wang and Jack going back and forth. It seems like, Jack's the rugged hero who's totally cool, and Wang seems a little edgy and out there and needs Jack to kind of keep him anchored. But it's gonna all change here.
Yeah, no, we'll notice that these minutes start at the airport, and one of the things that I first noticed when I saw these minutes is that it's a very Asian type of environment. I mean, Jack really stands out as being, the non-Asian. And then later when Gracie shows up, she's the only American, it seems, among all these crowds. And that seems to be a theme throughout Big Trouble in Little China. The focus on more Asian actors and less of a focus on American ones.
Yeah, we're definitely like a showcase for a lot of people, which is nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One funny thing in this airport scene is just, pre 9/11, people waiting at the gate, I kind of
smoking
that.
cigarettes in the waiting room.
Some of them are armed. No, there's probably like one TSA agent in the whole joint. Do you have a gun? No, I don't. Okay, we'll go right ahead.
And that's going to come up later because it's like, why? How is it that the Lords of Death, when they're going to show up, that they're even able to have these weapons at this point in the airport? But this is all pre 9/11. You could park cars up to the airport and nobody would ask any questions. It's a very different time.
This is where Jim O'Kane over at the Airport Minute would give you some airport related facts about criminals. Hi, Jim.
It's interesting because this whole scene takes place right outside of like the customs window, and you would assume that there are some armed officers right on the other side of that wall, but it's sort of a kind of dreamlike thing where everything that happens on the other side of that wall stays on the other side of that wall and they don't get involved.
Yeah,
it does seem like that, doesn't it?
Yeah. What happens in the terminal stays in the terminal. Guys, all those agents are probably uncles of the Lords of Death. So
let's see. We get our first appearance of yet another new actor or actress in this one, and that is Kim Cattrall as Gracie Law. It turns out that she was around 30 years old when Big Trouble was filmed. She was actually born in Liverpool, England, but her family immigrated to Canada when she was a baby. She ended up studying drama in school and landed her first big role in the 1975 Otto Preminger film Rosebud. Was that one that you've seen, Brett?
Rosebud? No, I've heard of Rosebud. I think that was Preminger's last movie, but I did not know Kim Cattrall was in Rosebud.
Yeah, 1975. I mean, later she was in... she's probably better known for roles in Porky's Police Academy and Mannequin. And then Star Trek fans remember her in Star Trek VI. But of course, her Sex and the City stuff that she did in the 90s as Samantha Jones, that's probably her most widely known role, I would say.
Remind me to tell you guys a bit of Kim Cattrall Star Trek folklore from Star Trek VI. This might be the impetus for a Star Trek VI minute, but I don't want to get too carried away here. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, up until this point, she kind of her career was built on crazy teen sex comedies. I saw a few of her scenes in Porky's, and I was a little embarrassed. I was like, wow, that's a lot of Kim Cattrall. So I kind of feel, this is a comedy, of course, but it's an adventure comedy. And when you first see her, the way she's lit and everything, this is a little bit different maybe from stuff she's been doing before. She seems a little more like a classic, movie heroine, a leading lady.
Yeah, a very 80s leading lady with that jean jacket and brown paisley scarf.
Yeah, huge hair. But, as Jack does an amazing double take, and walks towards her. Their dialogue. I've mentioned Howard Hawks before. She's her performance here is like the classic cool Howard Hawks woman. And you've got a great sort of 80s take. I don't know if this is Richter or Carpenter, probably both of them working together, but that dialogue is so snappy. It's very modern, but it harkens back to the 40s.
Yeah.
Interesting. In the screenplay, it's actually not all that dialogue there between Jack and Gracie does not exist in the screenplay. I kind of wonder if all of that was kind of improvised on the spot.
Okay, yeah, that's where I might say Carpenter takes them aside and says, "Okay, let's do this like a Howard Hawks movie, where I think what makes that dialogue work is they both know, or she like looks at him, I know what you want." And they aren't messing around. It's like they're one step ahead of each other, and they're just doing this great, verbal dance.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like right before Jack walks over there, and Wayne tells him she's trouble, and there's a great camera shot where the camera's kind of looking up at Jack, and he goes, "Trouble, huh?" But it's sort of I get the impression that he thinks he's bigger than he is. Like he's like, I got this.
Yeah,
which kind of seems like Jack throughout the movie.
Yeah,
and that's our second mention of the word trouble. I think it comes up another time. The title of the film and in the lines.
Yeah, that was the title, the working title at that point, right? Because it does seem like Jack, he doesn't quite break the fourth wall, but there is sort of a trouble, huh? I almost wish he'd said, what do you mean, like big trouble? But anyway, yeah, that's a great little moment, Pete.
As I watched this movie as a kid, there's a line that Kim Cattrall says at one point where she talks about, you should stand where I am, downwind. It's Miller time. I didn't get that until later. I'm like, oh yeah, she kind of realizes that he's been drinking.
Yeah,
from the previous scenes.
He's been drinking in an open air market, so he probably has all kinds of interesting sense on that. What do you call that shirt he's wearing? That
yeah, I was wondering about
that woven, that he must have borrowed from Jeff Bridges. That thing must have a lot of sense. There's probably a little of the sandwich he was eating in the credits.
Yeah. It also leads to one of the great cinematic cliffhangers. She says, "It's Miller time," and he says, "You know what I say when it's Miller time." But then you never find out what he says when it's Miller time. I'm always, what does he say when it's Miller? What does he say when it's Miller time?
Well, we could anticipate. We could create a Jack Burton random generator, and when I say it's Miller time, it's all in the reflexes. He probably had a beer in his moccasin. And he throws it up, grabs it. It's all in the reflexes, and but not to be, Sherry.
No, instead we get our first sort of hint of the John Carpenter background synth music for the airport, which really heightens the tension. And then we get our first appearance of the Lords of Death in their awesome 80s outfits, complete with the trademark white goggles.
Yes. What kind of goggles are those?
So I have a note about these, and I actually know a little bit because I used to sell these on my website. The glasses, they're actually based on Eskimo IGAC eyewear. These are real things. They were used to prevent snow blindness. And there's a place online that you can buy them. Not my website, but there's a place called ijack.com that sells these. They're custom made. They're about $100 with shipping.
Wow.
And they're cool. They're you can barely see through them. You're a little limited in how you can wear them, but I guess they do make a good sleep mask. That was that we got from before.
It shows just how cool the Lords of Death are. It's like, of course you can't see, but he manages to mess Jack up later. Spoiler alert. No, I love those things. Again, when I was mentioning, Year of the Dragon, the minute the Lords of Death show up, and they're just like, that's quintessentially 80s. It's the toughest gang in town, and they look like they were dressed by the same person who did the Beat It video. It's like, you remember in, like, especially the first half of the 80s, like, tough guys looked like music video punks.
Uh-huh.
And like the guys who hassled me never looked like that. It was, they're scary. Oh, he's got a lot of hair product.
Yeah.
And I just love it because and it also just sets the tone. It's like, here are these guys could have been in Repo Man.
Well, the little guy just came from the optometrist. I think he's got like those. I just had my eyes dilated glasses.
Yeah. He's obviously a big Devo fan. You know what? I would love it if it turns out that those three guys were in a band, and just somebody in casting said, "Oh yeah, I know these guys. Their band is actually called the Wing Kongs. Let's have them bring Small World or the Lords of Death. They were a punk band called the Lords of Death.
They actually have names. If you're wondering about their names,
yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
Their names are Needles, Joe Lucky, and One Ear.
Oh, which one? Well, which one is which?
So I'm not quite sure by sight, but I know that from reading, Needles is played by veteran stunt coordinator Jeff Imada.
Oh,
and,
neat.
The other actors, I guess they did stuff in other martial arts films. Joe Lucky is Rummel Moore. One Ear is Craig Ng. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Yeah. Yes. But yeah, Lords of Death. So if they ever do their own band, and that is a pretty cool name for a band, Needles, Joe Lucky, and One Ear.
Yeah,
those are great names.
I want to think the guy with the Eskimo goggles is Joe Lucky.
Yeah.
To me, he's Joe Lucky. He's not Needles. But and also there's the way they're filmed, real low angle. They're gigantic. They're menacing, and they got great hair. This is. Like I said, this is where the movie is really starting to turn in the direction that it's going to stay for the remaining, hour and 20 minutes or so.
And Pete, you were mentioning how Gracie kind of explains who they are. We're going to find a lot in this movie that there's quite a bit of exposition by certain characters. She says, Lords of Death, Street Punks from Chinatown, and immediately the audience says, okay, that's who they are. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of instances where we can sort of get filled in by the characters.
Yeah. And I'm kind of like, if you've listened to Indiana Jones Minute at all, I'm kind of the weird, I don't know if you call it conspiracy theorist. I like thinking of movies as fever dreams of other movies. And this scene in particular, because this whole movie kind of feels like a fever dream to me, like definitely like it's very dreamlike, surreal. And when I was watching this, I was kind of like, I wonder what movie this would be, whose fever dream this would be. And as soon as I saw those Eskimo goggles, I was like, I know who this is. I feel like this whole movie is, if you've seen Blade Runner, James Hong plays a guy, Hannibal Chew.
Ah, yes.
And he's the guy that creates eyeballs for everybody. And he's stuck in this freezing cold environment. And so you've already got the connection between the eye, like the freezing cold, like the Arctic environment, and the snow goggles and the eyes. And then when you think about it, this whole movie involves, there's so much going on with the green eyes, the eyes, look at the eyes. And so in Blade Runner, the replicants come in and they kind of give him a hard time, and then presumably they kill him. And I like to think right as he's kind of freezing to death, he's thinking, suddenly imagines that he's this powerful guy that can't die. James Hong and the rest of this movie is David Lopan, and everything is revolving around eyes and being cold.
Pete Mummert, ladies and gentlemen. Pete Mummert. Well, it's been fun. I'm going to go now. I can't top that. I'm not going to try to top that. That is way out there, but it's also brilliant.
So next time you watch Blade Runner, stop at the Hannibal Chew scene, watch the entirety of Big Trouble in Little China, and then you can read.
Yeah, and then hit resume. Yeah. I think
makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that is a first. I've heard many different kind of theories on various characters. A lot of people have sent me stuff just from fan fiction and fan site stuff. Haven't heard that one. I did hear at one point though that somebody was thinking that Jack Burton eventually becomes Snake Plissken, which kind of makes sort of sense. The same actor. But I do like the Blade Runner reference. That's interesting.
And just the some of the overlap with the production design and the lighting. Yeah, there's a lot of neon in both movies. Of course, Blade Runner came first, but they interesting similarities. So yeah, why not? This is a prequel to Blade Runner.
They both have a very sort of 80s Asia centric vibe to them as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. That's a really good point. That's a really good point. By the '80s, you were definitely seeing the influence and feeling the influence of Asia on American culture. And
Uh-huh.
that's what, again, these movies I think are reflections of that. It's like, we're not just gonna be quiet and be in Chinatown. We are a presence. We are a force.
Uh-huh.
And so yeah, but meanwhile, yeah, I forgot James Hong was in Blade Runner. You didn't, and boom, we
It was either that or Chinatown, and that was a little harder to.
well, I don't want to steal your thunder because and I might just be trying to like outdo you here, so upstage you. So, but as you're talking, I'm thinking, well, this could also be, and you mentioned freezing. This could be the end of the thing, as Kurt Russell's slowly
Oh,
dying
yeah.
at the end of that. And he's just like, man, I don't want to go out this way. I wish I'd been a truck driver in San Francisco, and but nah. Nah, you blew me away with that one. Gold medal. Take the podium, please.
Well, moving on with the minutes on that
Yes.
one. I did like the scene, the little gag that when Jack looks at Gracie and then
Yeah.
she quickly ducks out, and then suddenly Chinese grandma is there, complete
Yeah.
with the little ding sound effect in the
Yeah.
soundtrack. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. And Russell's take to that. It just shows how good he is in this role. That says, yeah, hi.
Well, and this scene kind of, I've been confused. Like this whole movie confuses me a little bit. The relationship between Jack and Wang is it. It sort of feels like the relationship goes back and forth between like they've been best friends for their entire lives to they're like very casual acquaintances. But this scene sort of seems to hit more on that they're kind of good friends. Like
Yeah.
Dennis kind of does that little chuckle after he looks over and oh, there goes Jack.
Yeah. I mean, especially since like in their very first scene, it's a little adversarial. You don't know what's going on between these two. But yeah, you kind of wonder like, how long have they known each other? And to what degree are they friends? Because one thing about Jack Burton, once he's in, and he's in all the way. He's just once he's in, he's not very much help.
Let's see. We have another character that appears shortly after that. You see Gracie pull out a photo of Tara, which is actually played by the actress Min Long. She had roles in a TV movie called Internal Affairs and a Christian Slater film called Gleaming the Cube with fellow Big Trouble actor Peter Kwong, who plays Rain. So yeah, after Tara shows up, then we get some pretty cool switchblade and staff action from the Lords of Death. And I mean, I made a note here that the sound effects that you hear is pretty sweet too. The sound effects guy is Alan Howarth, who was a longtime collaborator with John Carpenter. He was basically his version of Ben Burtt. And we'll hear some really neat sound effects, a lot of sci-fi stuff, sort of chop socky type stuff.
Yeah.
And this is sort of the first instance of that.
Yeah, I got to look up more about Alan Howarth because, I'm of course a big Ben Burtt fan, but I got to admit, some of his other peers I'm not so up on. But yeah, you're right. One thing about a John Carpenter movie is the sound effects, walking on snow in The Thing and things like that. So my apologies, Mr. Howarth. I got to brush up on you.
Yeah, me too. But this scene to me felt almost like a callback to Raiders. Raiders of the Lost Ark, because you've got
kidding.
You've both got the twirling knife is kind of like the Cairo swordsman. He's kind of flipping it around, and then you've also got like he takes out that longer kind of sword thing that's a lot like Tote taking out his hanger.
Right, yeah.
And then, but unlike Indy, like Jack ends up just kind of flat on his back, and I like that because he's sort of like an ineffectual Indiana Jones. Like he sees himself as Indiana Jones. And he tries to behave like Indiana Jones, but he doesn't always have the same outcome.
Yeah. And, a typical thing you see in an action adventure movie is you want to establish the capabilities of the hero. So, maybe in another script, Jack takes out one member of the Lords of Death. Then, and I'm assuming this is Needles with the knife and the stick. Then, the
Yeah.
second one comes up. Jack doesn't even get that. He doesn't get a punch. He doesn't even get to grab somebody's collar. He just kind of says, hey, what's his line? Wait just a minute.
Wait. Yeah.
And, it's just like, when they take him out, they just trip him. That's schoolyard stuff. So
Yeah, this is the first instance of Jack failing as the hero.
Yeah,
but
completely.
I mean, this is going to be a theme, but it's part of the charm here. I mean, he's kind of the lovable guy who tries hard, but he ends up falling on his butt.
Yeah.
I definitely think that adds to his likability. Like, I think he would be far less likable if he were a lot more capable hero.
Yeah. He would just be another, just another leading man, action hero, stencil. And I've said before, when I first saw this movie, I was expecting him to be, say, more of an Indiana Jones. And this did confuse me. It's like, he didn't even get a punch in. What a wimp. I'm gonna go get some milk duds. But if once you realize that's Jack's gag, his gimmick, then it gets funnier and funnier because he becomes, he's our lovable oaf.
And we've got a lot of there seem to be a lot about eyes and power in this movie, and you've got Jack lying on his back and his sunglasses are just kind of sprawled on his chest. Whereas the tough guys, they've all got their sunglasses on.
They don't move. Yeah.
No.
He lost his sunglasses. Uncool.
And then later on, the Lords of Death make their move. They grab Tara first, but then they grab Miao Yin. And I guess the question here is, what was their plan? Why were they trying to abduct Tara, and then why did they get Miao Yin? And if later on we'll actually get an explanation from Eddie. It turns out apparently that the Lords of Death, they were just trying to grab girls off the plane from China and sell them to the White Tigers. This is the brothel that'll come up later. And I guess in this case, really all of this trouble for the whole movie, I guess you could say, is Jack's fault, because essentially Jack was trying to impress Gracie, and so he tries to be the hero. He interrupts Tara's abduction. And so then after that happens, the Lords of Death just grab another Chinese girl off the plane. Unfortunately, that was Miao Yin. There's a line where, they say, oh, get that one. So they weren't really being specific. They were just trying to grab a girl. So yep, Jack's fault.
Yeah, and all the other times I've seen this movie, I kind of missed that. I always thought it was a little more conspiratorial, like, green-eyed girl is coming,
Yeah.
Lopan has agents everywhere, so, it's get the green-eyed girl. But you're right, it's like this weird, mix-up. And, if you're watching this for the first time, Miao Yin has the box, and are they after what's going on? There's, maybe this carpenter just playing with you, like, hey, there's 3 or 4 possible MacGuffins here. Have fun.
I was just curious. Is she happy to see Wang? Like, is she excited to see him? She seems very sort of matter of fact as she's coming off the plane.
No. I think it's Wang's crazy about her. She just wants to come to America. It's I think that's pretty obvious that she's not interested in them all. It's just like, hey, San Francisco, that's near Hollywood, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has very, very few lines in the whole movie.
Yeah.
In the screenplay and in a couple of the cutscenes, she speaks a lot more. But yeah, I mean, she just seems sort of like wide-eyed and ready to be there. And she doesn't seem that overjoyed to see Wang. Interesting,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The tension does get ratcheted up though as soon as the gun appears.
Yeah.
Which, and we were mentioning before, I mean, to see a gun like that at an airport is like a huge deal, even in this day and age. But it's almost like there's no security guards and no alarm is raised. Everybody just sort of makes a path for them as they head out with her.
Oh, that's just the Lords of Death. They're just kids. I know them all. They're just let them go. They need to burn off 16.
They're good kids.
They're good kids. They're into that new wave stuff. They're different. It's just a different scene with them.
There's actually a line that was in the screenplay at this point where I guess Jack inquires about the Lords of Death, and they're saying, oh, those guys are dangerous. But then Jack says, well, wait, maybe those guys have families too. Maybe they're here picking somebody up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because they're a gang doesn't mean they can't go on vacation.
They're like the grandma's coming in. Yeah.
Yeah. That was, we got to look at this from the Lords of Death point of view. They have feelings too.
That's right. And then things move along. They ended up running into the garage. And then we get our first instance of the Lords of Death Trans Am. And I know that you're very excited about that, Brett.
Yeah. How can you tell it's an 80s movie? There's a Trans. Actually, it is a Camaro. I'm going to be a bit of a car snob and say it's actually a Camaro. But
it's not a Trans Am?
Oh, wait. You're right. It is a Trans Am.
Okay.
Bad. Viewers, please respond. Let's make sure, But, but it's red. It's coming right at them. And, it's a funny, my perspective, I thought, oh, yeah, where'd they get that cool old Trans Am? Well, that was a new car in 86.
Yeah, no, it is mentioned in the script specifically that it's a Firebird, a red Firebird that races towards Jack and Wang. So Richter had something very specific in mind, and Carpenter delivered.
Yeah, and it's it's a great little action scene. You told me in the script something a little different happened. We have I think Jack does push himself and Wang out of the way in the last minute. But in the script, I think there's a little different thing that happens.
Yeah, that's right. In the screenplay, they are actually run over and flattened by the Trans Am, but then they emerge unharmed. And then there's even a line in the script where Richter writes, "It's going to be that kind of movie."
Love it.
I love that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is that kind of movie. And then so you don't have them flattened and then unflattened, but you do have one of Jack Burton's greatest lines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that is a good line.
Yeah,
I guess
I think that's
can we say it on the podcast?
I think we have to. I think we might. But yeah, son of a bitch must pay.
That's right.
And it's perfect delivery, and that's all in the reflexes is cute, but that's the T-shirt. That's the first T-shirt quote.
Mm-hmm.
And again, watching it the first time, I kind of thought, well, he didn't do too well at the airport. I'll give him a break on that. Okay, he just said that line. Now it's going to get real. Now he's going to eat his spinach. He's going to get really tough after this. Now, they've gotten him mad. Hang on. I'm not going to get any more milk duds here. Jack Burton is going to kick some ass.
I really like the sort of the contrast, though, is like the great editing here, where they cut between him and the guys are in the car and they just look so deadpan and relaxed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then they cut to Meow Lin in the trunk, and she just has that sort of blank expression. And I think that editing is amazing. And Jack's furious, and they're just completely. They're just completely deadpan. It reminds me of like something out of Raising Arizona or the Blues Brothers or something. They're just
very much like it looks like maybe they some kind of a fisheye lens, kind of compress or not compress things, but kind of telescope things a little in that car. Yeah, it's a great shot. And yeah, you're right. They're just like, oh, hey, those two guys are in front of us. Yeah.
Every vehicle in this movie seems to go so fast. Like the truck at the beginning and the car here. I don't know how they film these, but they all seem like they're going 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe they ramped up a little bit on the film, but yeah, this is that actually helps with the speed and pace of this movie. We're going to see in this minute. It's funny that there's no real car chase in this movie, but yeah, there are a lot of vehicles doing things, moving. I guess was what vehicles.
Actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that. Going back again to the screenplay. It actually has the Pork Chop Express chasing the Firebird on the Embarcadero Freeway. And there's a scene where they nearly drive the Lords of Death off the road. And there's a line again that Richter writes in. He's like, "Remember Bullet? Forget Bullet." And it just says that the Pork Chop Express is literally flying after the other car. it's an interesting omission. I mean, I can see where, if they wanted to keep their budget in check, they would kind of reduce that.
Yeah. And, as I recall, Carpenter was having problems with the studio and the budget, and, okay, let's forget about the car chase. That'll give us, that'll give us craft services for the rest of the movie. So let's just bummer though, because I can't recall if John Carpenter's, Christine had to have done a chase. But yeah, Firebird versus Pork Chop Express. I feel ripped off. I want to see that. Pete, in another universe where there's another version of Big Trouble in Little China,
yeah,
the chase exists.
Greatest car chase in cinematic history.
Yeah, and remember Bullet? Forget Bullet. I want that T-shirt too.
When they're driving, a couple of interesting notes here. Wang seems to know exactly where to go. Like he's already been keyed into the fact that the Lords of Death are in Chinatown. In fact, he even knows exactly which alley they happen to be in. And he also seems to know that Gracie is a lawyer. So there's some little bits of backstory there they never really touch into.
Yeah,
that come up when they're doing their driving.
I just saying, as someone who lives in San Francisco, like you do, Brett, I love this, just the visuals here of them driving north through Mission Bay on the 280 North, because a lot of this stuff is gone, and this freeway is gone. Like they had to rebuild this after the Loma Prieta quake in '89. And it's like a cool time capsule, and you don't.
Yeah, it really is. And with all our traffic problems here, I take the current version of that route, and I never just I don't have 5 lanes. I don't have to worry about was it a Nike truck or a
Puma truck?
Yeah.
Puma truck just kind of sliding in front of me. No, that's like. It's log jam pretty much 24/7.
I love that Puma truck though, because you've kind of, again, you sort of have this idea that Jack in his head, he's like, I'm going after him, I'm chasing him, this is great. And then you've just got like a big like semi truck is it's like passing him going at normal speed.
Yeah, come on. Yeah. Now, his reaction is like, really? Why can't I be like Indiana Jones?
So he's going like 45. He's like,
well, he's a very careful driver, of course.
That's the secret about Jack. He always keeps it. He always has it at the double nickels.
And then let's see. Moving on, we get to Chinatown. And that's still there. That intro with the dragon, or not intro. That's the entrance to Chinatown in San Francisco. It still has those dragons and everything. That's still there.
Yeah, that's the corner of Bush and Grant, and most of this action takes place on Grant Street.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that squeeze juice and hamburger place is no longer there on the corner. I take classes right around the corner there, so I walk by there a couple times a week, and now that's like a fancy kind of porcelain statue and chandelier shop.
Well, that seems like a funny kind of business in Chinatown, but overall though, if you look at 1986, 2016, it pretty much looks the same. Some businesses are gone, but it's it looked exactly the same 100 years ago too. So but it's definitely, this is one case where if you were to go, I mean, definitely the Dragon Gate, but to some of the other locations we're going to see, they pretty much look the same. You'll find them without too much trouble.
Uh-huh. And then we move on to Egg Shen's appearance as the tour bus driver. And my note here is that he seems like a quite different character than the first time that we saw him as that mysterious man in the lawyer's office.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. In a sense, I was thinking about this, and it's almost like Yoda's silly intro in The Empire Strikes Back before you realize that he's powerful.
Yeah, that's great.
And he's like, he tells this story about China and Chinatown and the workers on this fine, warm day. Mm.
Yeah, it's like straight out of Jerry Lewis or something like that. And it really contrasts, the prologue, which is, we all know was ordered by the studio. It kind of negates this is the real introduction to Egg Shen. And he's like this, cute elderly bus driver, and he may have a mogwai at home. I don't know. But and then we see his bus, and you can't quite make it out, but the lettering on the side of the bus is pretty awesome, and it's a reminder. It's in some ways it's similar to the logo on the Pork Chop Express. It's very comic book, it's very cartoony. It's a reminder that this movie is now firmly entered comic book land. It's a cartoony. You have this wonder. I've seen tour buses in Chinatown. None of them look as cool or as funky as Egg Chen. They don't have this huge. What exactly does it say? Is it just Egg Chen's tours or something like that? But it's this crazy cartoony.
Yeah, Egg Foo Young tours.
Yeah, Egg Foo Young tours.
In an appropriately yellow, very bright yellow bus.
Yeah.
And according to IMDb, the Chinese lettering reads, "Uncle Egg's tours guarantee a good time."
Seems like we're having a good time. Everybody in the bus looks, they're all extras.
Oh my goodness, yeah, they're thrilled.
Another indication that we're in an 80s movie. There's the guy in the middle who could be William Hookins, but it's not.
Yes. I was saying, is that Porkins right there?
When you can't get Hookins, you get that guy. And of course, he's wearing a members only jacket. By 86, it's over. In the early 80s, you could have a hero in a members only jacket, but now it's 86. That guy.
Wait a minute. Could that be the mysterious tie-in between Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and Big Trouble in Little China?
Yes.
We've all been looking for.
That's the
my God.
doorway.
Okay.
On the magic school bus. Yep.
Fasten your seatbelt. Porkins didn't die. The explosion created a time rift.
Yeah, and he had to be introduced by Yoda.
Yeah. So he just it's a little quantum leap. He just wakes up in a different movie and why am I wearing a members only jacket? I'm married. I'm on a tour bus. Hey, could have sworn I was, flying an X-Wing, but what's an X-Wing? I don't know. But anyway.
So then here's another question. So Egg makes a turn down a street, and then he seems to be surprised to see that there's a truck coming in his direction. So he is on a one-way street. The screenplay actually describes it as Washington Street in Chinatown. But look at the cars. They're actually parked in the opposite direction of the bus. So really, it's Egg who took a wrong turn, not Jack.
Yeah. So Egg's bus, when he makes that turn, is on Grant Street. And in the background, you see the Four Seas restaurant, which sadly just closed about a year or two back.
Yeah, they had a huge banquet room up there.
Yeah, the banquet room. The flea market, I think, is still there. But now I can't remember what street he turns on. But
I think Commercial Street.
Oh, that's funny. That's interesting.
Which is the oldest street in the city. Yeah.
Yeah. But that doesn't look like Commercial that Jack's driving up. That looks like they matched that with another street.
It does actually, yeah.
Yeah, that looks like it's maybe closer to Market, or maybe even off of North Beach somewhere. But I have yet to identify that particular street. But that looks like they just, they cheated it and used another street. Because, Josh, you're exactly right. Jack is actually being the good driver that he is. He's following the rules. Egg has made
He's probably even going the speed limit too, I'll bet.
Yeah.
Wait, so in the script, Egg is going the correct way down the one-way street? Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
It just mentions that he's going down a one-way street, Washington Street. They specifically say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I think we can be led to believe that Egg doing the tour he's the one who's following the rules. It would be Jack and Wang, driving like madmen. But here we have the evidence to say that Egg needs to retire or get an eye test.
And I love how Egg just flails around when he's worried he's going to get hit. Like he does like a little dance almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we have again some great cutting as they drive around each other. And you have that stunt woman who has a great reaction. Although it seems like in the previous scene, she's not there, then suddenly she is there in the close-up. But that green building she's standing in front of, I want to say I've seen that somewhere before. Again, it looks real familiar. We'll just have to, Pete, you and me will just have to do a
Big Trouble tour.
And Big Trouble tour, and maybe post some pictures.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've wondered as I've watched this over the years, that woman who Egg almost hits, is that Margot or is that some other actress? It kind of looks like her.
I know what you mean. I
Yeah.
think it's probably some other actress. I think
Yeah,
if it was Margot, they would have had a tighter close up.
maybe. Yeah.
And
That'd be a nice little
that's
touch, though, if
interesting.
it's Margot walking up to to meet everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll look at that again. But I just wondered, is that just a stunt woman who then shows up, in another scene later?
Uh-huh.
Because she looks, or maybe I've just seen her narrowly hit by trucks in other movies, but she does look familiar.
So now you guys are both from San Francisco, or at least though roundabouts there.
Yeah,
How often do you have a chance to go to Chinatown in San Francisco?
that's a good question. Pete, sounds like you're there
I'm
more,
there,
definitely more
yeah,
often
usually
than
a
me.
couple times a week, actually.
Really? What are the good places to go in that area?
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
it's a great place just to walk through it. And it's interesting because it looks almost identical today, except it's not as gritty and kind of monochromatic as it was in this movie, which is cool because it's sort of a nice look back at kind of a little bit different era.
yeah. And just I don't know, just as a tie-in, one of my favorite places in Chinatown is the old Great Star Theater on Jackson Street, which is a theater built like over 90 years ago. First theater in America where a Bruce Lee Kung Fu movie was shown in 1972. And just a couple months back, they had a huge Big Trouble in Little China. It was a whole combining the movie with a live performance, and
Oh.
it was a complete spectacle. It was an event.
Hmm.
And so and I think they did it 3 nights, sold out every night, and looked like a lot of fun, which is why I didn't go.
All right. Well, that pretty much wraps up the minutes that we have. But before we go, I'm just curious, Pete. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your first time when you saw Big Trouble in Little China.
So I'd seen bits of it when I was younger, but I don't think I saw the whole thing until I was an adult. And my first reaction, I wasn't a huge fan of the movie. But it's kind of one of those things that kind of sits with you for a while. And the more you think about it, the more you're like, I kind of like, that was interesting. And it's kind of interesting how kind of he seems to be the hero of the movie. And then the more you watch, you're like, I wonder what he's doing there. That seems to kind of be going in a different direction. And I mean, now I really like the movie, but it sort of felt like an acquired taste for me.
That seems to be a common theme. Brett was
Yeah.
saying the same thing for the first time that he saw it in theaters.
Yeah, it's very similar to you. I mean, when I was watching it, again, it was mostly just expecting Jack to be the hero.
Uh-huh.
But meanwhile, there's so much cool stuff going on that I was engaged with it. If anything, again, that was kind of the distraction. Was we'd have this is a great fight scene. Oh boy, and what's Jack doing? Nothing. Okay, we'll check back on him in a minute.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I think it's a movie that does grab you. You might need to. I think Pete, what you said really, really, there's something there because I think you see it and you kind of go, wow, that was different, that was interesting, and then I think this is a movie. Some movies you have to watch a couple of times, and each time you do, you get a stronger impression of it.
Right.
To the point again now, I think I think the Big Trouble renaissance really seems to be booming this year in particular.
Yeah.
And we're here to exploit it to the max.
Absolutely. Well, all right, guys. I think that's going to actually wrap this up. So a couple of final things. Please visit us at 5minutesoftrouble.com. You can check us out on Facebook at 5 Minutes of Trouble and Twitter at 5 Minutes Trouble. And we please ask you guys to tell your friends about this podcast if you like it. Give us a nice rating on iTunes. And we want to make sure to give a shout out to our friends at the Indiana Jones Minute.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
You guys are starting to wrap it up at this point, or by the time this comes out, you might be done already.
Yeah, we may be done with Raiders and getting ready to move on to Temple of Doom.
When do you think you'll be starting Temple of Doom?
We're in negotiations with each other right now.
I see.
I'm not sure yet.
You're going to keep going and do a Temple of Doom in it.
Yep. I
Okay,
think we're in
then
it for all.
Excellent. And we'll have to go to Hamilton Air Force Base in Nevada. Where you
Yes.
can, yeah, they're one of the indie locations. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, we loved it. We love to do the location sightseeing, and in the Bay Area is quite an opportunity for that.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Any last words, Pete?
No, thanks for having me on the show. This was a lot of fun.
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh,
absolutely. Thanks for coming on. This was great.
Yeah, thanks for being our first guest. And again,
I'm honored.
give our regards to Jerry and Tom, your awesome
Certainly.
co-hosts. And, yeah, keep going with the Indiana Jump Minutes.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, this is the Podcast Express signing off. Tune in next week for another 5 minutes of trouble on this fine warm day.
Yeah.